Hello, and welcome back to Fulfillment Therapy. My name is Maddie, Kendra Nielsen COO, and today you'll be listening to episode 260, Parenting from the Inside Out, How Self-Awareness Transforms Family Dynamics, as Kendra is a guest to Lisa Smith's podcast. We hope you enjoy.
Hey, welcome back to the Pretty Woman Podcast. Lisa Smith, and today I'm thrilled to have an extra special guest. I have Kendra Nielsen with me. Kendra is a licensed therapist and host of Fulfillment Therapy Podcast. She runs a private practice and mental health and wellness company where she helps people discover their path to a more meaningful life, one step at a time. As a wife to a therapist and mom of 4, Kendra knows firsthand the challenges of balancing family life. She teaches parents to take control of their growth and create a more fulfilling life for themselves and for their families. By sharing how to lean in and become the best versions of themselves, Kendra inspires others to live with greater purpose and intention, living a life without regret. Welcome, Kendra. Thank you for coming on today.
Thank you for having me. I appreciate it.
Yes, I'm really excited to talk with you. Tell us about your private practice and your mental health and wellness company, and then how that relates to your podcast.
Sure. So I don't even remember when I started my private practice several years ago, and my online business in the last couple of years as well. It started when my brother died pretty tragically, and my dad died too when I was younger, both very tragic, very sudden. And after my brother died, I realized I was living, I don't want to say half a life because that wasn't true. I was doing my best. And I realized how many excuses I had been making. And I realized that time is short. I think we all realize that to some degree when there's tragedy, when it strikes. And I just stopped making excuses. I started, like you just mentioned in that bio, I started to lean in more and challenge some of those things that I was doing, or more accurately, what I wasn't doing. And so I decided, no, I'm going to stop making these excuses. I'm going to start this online business. I'm going to start creating a passive income, become the leader that I feel like I want to be, I need to be, but I hadn't yet at that point. So this business is all about helping others become their best selves, even in therapy, helping other people overcome trauma or marriage problems, anxiety, depression, a lot of those things that keep us stuck and prevent us from living our best life, becoming our best selves, and living without regret.
Very powerful. You had to get to a point that there was some catalyst or combination of things that became the catalyst to spur you on, huge life 180, to recognize where you were and to say, this isn't the life I want, and I'm going to put things in place to change it. What was it? Was it simply just a realization, or were there other things that were leading you to start to make these dramatic changes?
I think it was a combination of things. I think it was a string of different things leading up to that. Like I had 4 children, and there had been a lot of things that I was working through personally that had kept me stuck, like wondering what it is that I was wanting to do and how I could best do that. Just course correcting along the way and feeling like there is a lot of these little forks in the road. Okay, where do I want to go? And slowly but surely it led me there. But yeah, it was honestly the biggest decision for me came after my brother's death, for sure. That was the biggest moment where I'm like, okay, there's more for me to do out there. There's more people for me to help. But I still think it's interesting that I didn't jump fully into trauma or helping people. Like my brother died from an overdose, helping people with addiction. But it was more about the solution focused part. Like, how can I help people? That second part. I don't know if you are aware of Maslow's hierarchy of needs, or do you know about that at all?
I do. I was a psych major undergrad, so that and $2 will get you a cup of coffee at Starbucks. But
a lot of people are aware of it, essentially. But I realized that I was spending so much of my time, not only me personally, but other people that I was coming across, clients, different people. And we were getting so stuck in those primary needs instead of those growth needs. And for those listeners that don't know much about it, if you're so focused on finding shelter, finding food, creating that stability with a job, all of those things, that's the bottom of the pyramid, and that's fine. And it's hard to focus on other things. It's hard to focus on finding fulfillment. And my podcast is called Fulfillment Therapy. So it's all about the top of the pyramid that is more about that creativity, becoming your higher self, becoming who you're meant to become, that self-actualization, It's doing those things, making sure those other things are in order so that you can live more fully instead of just putting out the fires your entire life. I don't know if your listeners are any different than mine, but sometimes we're just so focused on putting out those fires that we forget that there's so much more available to us.
I agree with you. I do believe that we get so bogged down with the day-to-day life, and we all have different types of traumas, whether it's big T or small t. We all have different things in our past and our present that we can get stuck in. Along those lines, you do work with trauma and mental well-being and healing. How does unresolved emotional trauma, how does that manifest physically or into life? What do you see in your practice?
Yeah.
How that affects people deeper, not like the obvious stuff, right?
Yeah, absolutely. I'll give some personal examples and then with clients too. What I see is that often we get hyper focused on things, but often the wrong things. A lot of my clients get very busy. We get really focused on maybe kids or career or different things, and we put all of our energy and thoughts and all of us pretty much into these things instead of focusing on what can bring, like I talked, greater fulfillment. So we often do that because we are trying to avoid those deeper wounds that keep us from really thriving. So again, I'll go back to a personal example. I still have to be aware of this, but I really like to be productive and busy and a high achiever. But sometimes that is trauma related because of different things that have happened. That's my dopamine fix, the thing that I can quickly do to feel better in the moment. But long term, is that going to give me true joy and happiness and fulfillment? No, while these are some things that I value, there's other things that matter more, like family, faith, whatever your top values are. And sometimes I'm avoiding those things when I'm not doing that deep work to work on those other things. I've done a lot of trauma therapy because of the things that I've struggled with, challenges like whether it's abuse, neglect, healing from the death of my dad, my brother, very suddenly. That requires deeper work. And when you don't do that, you are just putting on a lot of band-aids. And again, talking about that pyramid, you're not going to get to that point of really thriving when you're just covered in band-aids.
That makes total sense. Yeah. And it resonates a lot. Some of us tend to be workaholics. Me, I am one. And I do think that may come from a place of, I know what to do there. I know how to succeed there. And that feels good. That feels like I'm doing what I'm supposed to do. And I do think sometimes there's confusion. I know for myself, I know there are different areas that need deeper healing, but don't even know how to go about it. You know what I mean? So there are so many different things we all try in life because we all know, oh, this is an Achilles heel of mine. This thing has badgered me for years. You're just in the back of my head. And you might try different things, but maybe you're still like, I don't know that modality or that method really, or that person that I've worked with really, I didn't get where I thought I would get. I'm still badgered by this Achilles heel. So what do people do then if you don't really know what to do?
Great question. I, of course, because I'm a therapist, would always recommend starting with therapy. But yeah, there's lots of different ways. I actually just recently had a podcast guest that even talked about yoga. Like there's something called karma yoga. And I was like, I didn't even know, but it sounds very much like trauma therapy. So it doesn't necessarily have to be this traditional route of a therapist, but there are specific trauma therapies that you can do. There's EMDR, hypnotherapy, just brain spotting. There's a lot of different things that you can do to get help to do that deeper work. But say you don't have access to one, which pretty much everyone does now is telehealth, but maybe you don't want to go that route. There can even be other forms that will help a lot, like journal writing, even if it's audio, that helps so much. There's so many studies that talk about how that can really help with processing. That can be a really good friend that's not just fueling the fire of just building up resentments and anger, but that will help you like work through it in a productive way. I would honestly just suggest therapy the most to do that deep work to really feel like you can thrive. And again, I'm going to go back to a personal example. I didn't realize how much I needed it, but if you feel that you're often triggered, you're often reactive, like you have this big response, even if it's just snapping at people a lot when certain things are brought up, and you're like, oh, where did that come from? There's this quote by Mark Groves. He said, when you get reactive, get curious. You have a wound that is waiting to be healed. And if you're getting reactive, it means that there's something underneath there that is ready and waiting for your attention so that you can go to that space where you're not so reactive. And I know my why is often my children. Like, I don't want them to grow up with a really reactive and overwhelmed mother. I want to be the kind of person that has done my inner work. It doesn't mean I'm not going to ever be reactive again, but it means that I can be more grounded and I'm not going to live with such tension and anxiety and overwhelm and depression and fatigue. Like, when I'm working through these things, I can be more calm, more centered. I can talk through things without getting so activated all the time. And that helps me show up as a better person.
As you said, with telehealth, there's so much more now in the past few years that's available to all of us. But that brings up its own issue of how do you find someone who's good? That can be a needle in a haystack. You might have to kiss a couple frogs until you find that person who's going to work well with you.
I love that you said that. Yeah. Kiss a few frogs. I think you do. And being willing to advocate for yourself and fire people if necessary, just say, that's not a good fit. And one thing that I didn't realize I needed to do, but really helped, is I have some good therapists, but I realized I had to start advocating for myself, especially in trauma therapy with EMDR. Some things worked for me and some things did not. And over time, I got more bold about, no, this actually works better, even though this is the way you like to do it. This works better for me. So being able to say those things and recognize that you're paying here, you can share what works for you and what doesn't.
That's good. And that brings up another point that so many of us, especially as women, we grow up really becoming quite effective people pleasers. Like, that becomes just this under the radar where we don't even know we're doing it until we hear ourselves out loud and we're like, did I just say that? I don't really want to do that. Why did I say I would do that? And I feel like that can carry, depending on our level of people pleasing. I am a recovering people pleaser. Believe me, it's a battle. But I feel like we need to remember that in all situations, even in a situation in therapy or in a medical appointment or somewhere that we tend to defer to the expert, that we need to actually stand up for what's resonating or not with us inside.
Absolutely. And I love that you speak to the people pleasing part, because that's a lot of my clients. That's definitely me. I've had to let go of a lot of that. And sometimes when we let go of that, sometimes we even overcorrect, where then it was like, oh no, me, like I haven't focused on me for a really long time. So it's hard to find that balance for sure.
It definitely is. And sometimes I'm like, am I being bitchy? Like, I'm not trying to be. I'm trying to find the sweet spot. But I feel like, no, like it is a definite balancing act, because you're learning all new muscles that you have not been exercising for many years. So, yeah, maybe for little. Yeah. So what do you find to be a thought, a myth, anything like that's keeping people stuck in poor health, poor mental health, and poor, it can affect relationships, physical health, whatever?
I could go so many directions because each one of us has a lot of limiting beliefs. But I teach a lot on ownership, or the victim cycle that we get stuck in. And we all have our favorite ones that we like to focus on. I'll give an example even for me, because it's what I hear my clients saying a lot too, is the big ones are, I don't have enough time, I don't have enough money, and this hesitancy to put resources into ourselves that we would absolutely put into other loved ones, whether that's kids, whether that's a best friend, whoever that might be. And yeah, just very willing to do whatever we can for somebody else, but to apply that to ourselves and then to recognize, okay, I can only control myself. I can only control my side of the street. And if I am a threadbare mom, and if I'm an exhausted employee, whatever I am, like, this is something that is mine to take ownership of. And what can I do to do that? So it could be something different for every person. But for me, it was like, okay, I need to take ownership of this then. I can't keep blaming my husband for maybe not being around as much. I can't keep blaming my kids when they're just these little humans. What can I do on my side? And I started small. I started listening to podcast episodes for mental health and wellness. I started to then read books. And then I started to realize what was helping me come alive. And I broke that down. And that's one thing that I talk a lot about to clients and on my podcast too, is getting really intentional, really specific about what it is you want. How are you going to live your life to the fullest? For example, Lisa, I don't know what you would do if you knew you're going to die in 10 years, like how you would live your life differently and how you would shift things, where you would change your priorities, you would change your daily structure. With my clients, I get really intentional about, okay, how can we take more ownership? How can we live, honestly, just more intentionally without staying in that stagnant state, without just getting stuck in surviving instead of thriving? I know that's the buzzwords right now, but we do get really stuck in that mediocrity, that stagnancy. And unless we're progressing, we will not be happy. We'll just, that's where we stay stuck in anxiety, poor health, depression. All of those things result when we are stuck in that stagnancy and not taking ownership.
Yeah, there's so much there. There's so much to unpack there. Let's just take a step back. When you made a great point and said we'll often allocate resources to someone else we love. When it comes to us, we say, I just don't have the money for that. Now you would have it for one of your kids or someone else that you love. But for yourself, you're like, that is connected very deeply to self-care, genuine self-care. And we know self-care is important. It is another buzzword of, oh yeah, I know I need to take better care of myself. But in reality, I think a lot of times we feel guilty if we do things for ourselves, or we just don't want to take the time. We don't want to spend the money. So how can we begin to shift that to where we are prioritizing ourselves and our wellness?
Yeah, that is another good question, and a lot of us do get stuck on this. How can we prioritize ourselves when it's so much easier to prioritize other things? Usually people, but often work, often whatever it is that feels easier. Maybe we don't have to put much thought into it. It's just something that we do. For my clients, I often tell them to get still. I guess I should start there. A lot of this just comes with stillness, and we don't like stillness, especially in our culture. I'm guilty of this too.
Me
and
too.
to really get still about, okay, what is it? Again, what is it that I want? But also, what's keeping me stuck? Talking again about those limiting beliefs. And I encourage them to come up with some mantras that they can say to themselves when they get stuck. One thing that I do for this specific thing that you're talking about is I say, okay, imagine that, if you have a child, I want you to imagine that child grown up, or maybe a best friend or a niece, a nephew, somebody that you really love and care for. And what advice would you give to them if they were coming to you with the same thing? They're telling you they don't have any time, they don't have any money, they don't want to take time for self-care. What would you say? And then they start telling me all these things that they would say. I'm like, okay, let's apply that to you and let's make some mantras out of that. So some of the things I say is, okay, now that I've given myself some advice here, my mantra is, my well-being is essential for my family's well-being. Or I'm stronger when I take care of myself. Or my children benefit from a happy, healthy me. Now, this is somebody that really values family, so these things help them. Yours might be completely different. But any kind of mantra that you can start to tell yourself when you feel yourself getting stuck and you're going into those excuses where I talked about, again, that ownership. If you notice you're making a lot of excuses, you're going into that victim cycle again, where you're not acting, but being acted upon. You're staying stagnant because you're going back into maybe it's a poor me, maybe the glass is half empty. You're just doing these different things that are keeping you bound down instead of thriving.
That's really helpful to begin to incorporate mantras based on each person's own priority, what they want, what they need, what their why is, essentially. So what would you say with burnout and stress and exhaustion? I'm guessing you see a lot of that based in your practice. In addition to mantras, what are some other maybe unconventional or lesser known strategies that you help people develop in addition to mantras and paying attention to self-care and reversing some of that self-talk? What are some other things that are either stress management or how to start to become healthier?
Actually, I just was working with some clients this morning, 3 of them, and I was reminded how often I work on a couple different things. 2 things. It's assertiveness or communication with that, and boundaries. It comes up with almost every single client that I work with. I forget how terrible we are at this, culturally setting boundaries. And that can be with ourselves, that can be with other people. And I teach them a lot about boundaries. We really break it down because this is hard for so many of them. It's not other people's responsibilities to enforce our boundaries, to maintain boundaries, to set boundaries. That is, again, that ownership part, that's on us. And so many times when we say, I've set these boundaries, like, well, have you? So we start to break it down and we realize they have not, or they in their head they have, but they haven't really communicated them. They haven't assertively spoken up or said it in a way that the other person could understand. And as we go through these, we realize, okay, there's a lot of areas here. There's reasons why this boundary is not being upheld. There's a reason why the other person doesn't understand it. And when these things happen, it's like they're refueled. You can see their tank filling up because suddenly they feel more empowered. Suddenly they feel less exhausted, less resentful. There's just so much more joy. There's so much more relief from feeling like they can get some of those needs met. And that's another thing I talk a lot about is your unmet needs and understanding how to get those met. But I would definitely say self-advocacy or assertiveness and boundaries for sure.
That is so helpful. I didn't know the answer, but that's the type of meat I was asking for. Not you need to take more walks in nature or you need to, all those things are good that we're told for helping to ground us and bring down stress and reduce burnout. But boundaries, that is gold right there. Just going to speak for myself because I'm a great case study. I don't have good boundaries. It's one of those things like, I don't even know where to start. I tell myself I'm working on boundaries. And I think I have made progress for sure. But it's almost like you're just blindly figuring it out. If you're not working with a therapist and your boundaries are a weak spot, so where do you start?
First and foremost, it is harder to do with just the little random different things you find online. So I do have some free resources you can check out. fulfillmenttherapy.org and /free. And I have a lot of these free things I've created for my clients because I'm happy to help anybody out there that just needs some extra help. We all do. I have a formula for this, a script for you, just fill in the blanks to figure it out. But it comes down to getting clear on what you value the most because you need to know what it is you want to protect. If you don't know, then you're confused why you're so reactive all the time. Like for me, it is family. It's fun. I love to have adventure and have fun and play. And it's also freedom. If I don't have autonomy and some sort of freedom and time to do my own thing, I'm much more tense and irritable. So if you find yourself getting tense, irritable, reactive, chances are very high that there are some boundaries that need to be set that haven't been set and you're growing in resentment. So once you identify what those values are, then you break down on this worksheet how to protect those boundaries and then what it is you really want. And it can even be a win-win. It doesn't always end up being a win-win, but for example, say from my husband, I'm wanting more shared responsibilities at home because I'm feeling really resentful that I'm doing most of the work and why isn't he helping? And so I start to get intentional about this. Okay, I feel disrespected because I don't feel like you're an equal partner and that I'm taking on more of my share. I don't feel that maybe my freedom is being respected here. So then I map this out a little bit, doing my free write, this worksheet, and I get clear on what that could look like. Okay, for a win for me would be this. And then I think in my mind, what could be a win for him? And again, it doesn't have to be a win for him all the time, but I start to just map it out and think about it. And then I come to this clear, okay, I think this would actually work. And then I go to my husband, and this is the self-advocacy part. This is the standing up for yourself assertively and saying, this is how I'm feeling. And this worksheet helps you break it down like that too. This is what I'm feeling. This is what I value. This is what I want to protect. This is what I'm thinking would help with this. What do you think? And then collaborating, being willing to be flexible, but then sticking to that boundary. And that takes sometimes a few therapy sessions or coaching sessions to help them because we're not always great with that. But that's the meat of it. But hopefully that helps you understand a little bit.
That's awesome. Yeah, I love that you provide those free resources. That's something, guys, I'll have the link in the show notes, but that's fantastic. So let's talk about, you've worked with so many different people Is there a personal transformation that you could share with us that you've seen that you're really happy with? Or maybe from a HIPAA standpoint, you just want to do almost like a collage of these are some of the things I've seen.
Absolutely. Yeah. The first person I thought of was one of my clients. This was, about a year ago. And he came in, he was obviously a more extreme case in this regard, but he was stooped. He was just really struggling. He was suicidal at the time, just feeling like there's no point to really living, just really low, and had never seen a therapist. And so we started to talk about some of these things. We did some trauma therapy. We really got intentional about what it is he wants, what he would like to have more of in the future, how he wants his life to be different, and really getting clear on what that looks like, because he hadn't broken it down. He hadn't gotten still. All he could think about was the loss, how his life wasn't what he wanted it to be. And instead we became creators in a sense. Like, okay, what can you create to get more of what you want? How do you want to change it? So focusing again more on that ownership, plus that trauma therapy, taking off those band-aids and doing some of that deep work. I wish I could have taken a before and after, but for HIPAA reasons, I could not. But it was incredible. This guy went from being a frumpy, not very attractive person to literally being chased by a lot of women. He was so different. Like, he stood tall. He was like tan. He would go on all these vacations by himself. He became really fit because he just got addicted to all these amazing things out there that were building his life, and he just jumped in fully. And I was just in awe. I'm like, that is incredible. And honestly, it was a relatively short span of time, and this man was just glowing by the end. And I don't even want to say this is Kendra. This was really just a willingness to take ownership and stop making excuses for the things that had gone wrong in his life, and instead doing what he could to change his part. And he totally did. And it was so beautiful to see.
I love that. It's awesome. We only have one chance at this life, and to go through it and get to the end with regrets that were regrets we could have done something about. That is the most heartbreaking part of all. But to see someone actually take the tools and transform his life, and I'm sure you have many, his and her. Fantastic. I love that story.
Thank you. Yeah, I was very impressed. I wish I could help all people like him that are ready to go, but we're not all there, are we?
But the good news is wherever we are, we can still have transformation. It might not be his transformation, but it's transformation. If we begin to identify where we are, and it's not where we want to be, so identify where we want to be. So some of the top tools we've taken away just from talking today: mantras, writing down some mantras, but maybe let's switch the order a little bit. So identifying what we want that we don't have, and then using self-advocacy or assertiveness to be able to get it there, and then also identifying what boundaries we need to put in place, and then also bringing self-affirmations in. That is all life-changing right there, guys. You could take any of these things and that can be life-changing, but also then the tools that you offer for free, I'm going to go check out, and I appreciate that you put them out there to have the impact that you're having. Is there anything else we're missing? Anything else you want to add on today before we wrap up? Any other tools that you love?
Yeah. I was going to say no, because those will give you plenty of work for sure. But I think the last thing probably would be just to give yourself some grace, because sometimes when you hear all these things, you're like, oh my goodness, I have so much work to do. Like, how am I going to do all this? I'm already so threadbare. I would just start small. I'm such a big advocate in incremental growth, just focusing on that 1%. James Clear talks about that. If you just focus on changing 1% each day, that'll be 37 times better at the end of the year. And I think that's incredible. So just focus on that tiny thing that you can do, even if that's maybe 5 minutes of intentional journaling where you focus on how can I take more ownership? How can I be more of an advocate? Just asking yourself those little questions every day. Whatever your 1% is, focus on that and give yourself grace when you mess up. Probably the best thing I do with my kids is say, I'm practicing too, and I apologize all the time. Like, I'm learning, I'm sorry for my part, and I take ownership and I just keep trying. So that's all we can do.
Yeah. James Clear, I'm a big fan. Atomic Habits is his incredible bestseller. But then also there's another book. It's an older book that talks all about what you just said. It's called The Slight Edge by, I think it's Jeff Olson. And The Slight Edge is fantastic. And it talks about, if we look at, let me see if I'm on video, those little decisions we take every day, they do one of two things. They either take the trajectory up or they take the trajectory down. But those little tiny decisions that really seem meaningless to us at the time, they're building a groove that's taking us one way or the other. So I love the James Clear example where we can get so much better just by that little 1% every single day. And if we have a day we don't, it's okay, because tomorrow's another day. And we just need to get back on the horse and get back at it. How do people find out more about you and connect with you, work with you, all the things? I'll have it in show notes, but in case anyone likes to write when they listen, I like it. I'd like you to share that.
Of course. Yeah. So you can check me out on any podcast platform, Fulfillment Therapy, and also at Fulfillment Therapy on Instagram. Really just do that search and you can find me on all the socials, my website. So yeah, check those out. I think those are most of the places. Hello at fulfillmenttherapy.org if you want to email us.
Perfect. Thank you. All right. This has been delightful. Thank you for joining in today. And guys, let us know how you liked today. Shoot us a line and give us your feedback. I always love hearing from you. Until next week, stay pretty well. Bye.
Thank you so much for joining us today. As a reminder, please head over to our website to see our courses. They are absolutely amazing. As someone who's done them myself, I have definitely found so much more fulfillment in my life, as well as gotten steps forward in how I can improve. And if you'd like to become an intern for our future semesters, please email us at hello@fulfillmenttherapy.org. We hope to see you on our website, as well as to join us if you would like to. Have a wonderful day, and we'll see you back here every Monday and Thursday.